Now, before we proceed over to the rest of this script, we need to learn about something that's very important to our understanding of this file system module. Now, this file system module and the consequent method that we will be using in this script is the write file, as I was talking about. Now, in this write file, likewise, the other arguments, the callback argument is actually very unique, because we are going to include some sort of anonymous functions which will in turn do some which will in turn retrieve all the data and put to our disposal from this file that we will be defining, or we will be calling using this write file method. This callback will essentially be a function. Now, the important part to understand in here is Node has two forms of asynchronous programming techniques. One is called the callbacks and the other one is the event listener. The first thing that we are going to talk about is the callback, because Node is always reliant on this callback functionality. Callback actually does a lot of stuff inside Node. So a callback is essentially a function, and this function will be passed as an argument to such methods, and many of these methods require other anonymous callbacks or other anonymous functions to do something for them. So this asynchronous function, you can actually look at this function, and this is an asynchronous function. Now, this write file method also has a synchronous form. So if you head over, or if you scroll over this page, which is the page that I'm actually right now in the API documentation of Node's official website, and I am looking at the read file sync method. Now, this method is quite similar, but this method, the one that we will be using, is an asynchronous function. Now, the difference between asynchronous and asynchronous function is very vivid in terms of programming when we talk about JavaScript. So JavaScript has got these two programming types. One is the synchronous type and the other one is the synchronous type. Now, the first part of asynchronous came into being when the web development world introduced the AJAX technology. The AJAX is actually the smaller, or it's the full abbreviation for AJAX is Asynchronous Javascript and XML. But AJAX has grown quite old and it has got its own problem, but nonetheless, JQuery handles a lot of stuff about AJAX, because when we try to do programming with our server and we need to use some sort of form on the client side, then we need to use AJAX. And now JQuery gives a lot of support about AJAX. The reason why I'm talking about AJAX, because it was the stepping stone for asynchronous programming in JavaScript programming language. The difference between synchronous and asynchronous is when you create an application, synchronous functions or synchronous application will have some form of communication or client and server request and response methodology, which actually relies on the calculation being done first, then the response being sent later. But asynchronous terminology relies on something that's like, you come first, you get the diddle first, which means if you are sitting on this page and if you click on a button, the page will automatically load in, will actually change its content and bring up the content that you requested. But the synchronous part is that the server will do all the calculation. You will have to wait on your browser to receive the page. In that meantime, you will have a blank page, and when the server has done all its calculation about that page, it will send the entire page, and then you will be able to see the entire page. Now, there are two differences. The main difference, like if you click on a link or if you click on a button like this, the synchronous function, what it does, like if I click on something, maybe the crypto module. So what it does is that it actually changes only this left hand side. it doesn't change anything on the right. It changes everything on the right hand side, sorry for that, but they don't change anything on the left hand side. So asynchronous programming is only bringing the essential part, which is I have clicked on the crypto module, or I have requested the documentation for this crypto module, and when I click on this, so this request goes to the server, and the server looks at the page, and it sees that it does not require, or it does not need to change anything on the left hand side. But what I'm requesting is only to change the content that on the right hand side. So what it does, it keeps all the content on the left hand side as same as before, but it changes everything on the right hand side. So this actually reduces the request and response timing, so your page will load faster. But in synchronous programming technique, when you click on this link, your entire request will go to the server and your page will vanish. Now the server will do an entire calculation, and it will fetch another page similar to this. It will fetch another page, and then the page will be loaded by your browser. So the difference is that in asynchronous, what is required is being changed, but what is not required stays the same. But in synchronous, everything it changes. Everything gets back to the server, gets back and forth to the server, which means synchronous programming takes a lot of time rather than synchronous. So if an user, for example, if I click on this method, which is crypto.setEngine, if I click on this, it immediately takes me to the documentation part of this method. So this documentation tells me what options or what arguments I will get and what are these options. So what it has done, if it was done with synchronous programming, then your page would have vanished, which means your request was being processed by your server. Now your server would have fetched, or would have